Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 161 of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. I am so excited to be with you this week. I'm very excited for the subject matter that I'm going to share with you and discuss. But I also have to share with you, I am a very, very proud mother. My younger son, graduated high school. He graduated from the Muhammad University of Islam 20 in Camden, New Jersey. And I am just so proud of him. I'm certainly proud of my older son, his elder brother, and I'm proud of my community, those who, if you listened last episode to an address that I gave at a recent Juneteenth event, I talked about how my community came together to serve not just me and my family, but many families so that we can have an opportunity to educate our children in an environment where they can be nurtured and cultivated and loved, and where a parent can leave their child with the educator and not feel any anxiety that their child is going to be mistreated, that there's going to be any bias, that there's going to be any prejudice, that that child is going to be mistreated or mismanaged. And I am so, so very thankful to everyone at Muhammad University of Islam 20 in Camden, New Jersey, and our administrator, Brother Minister Wasim Muhammad, for making sure that our children had what they need academically and spiritually. And I'm just very elated and excited, as he, figures out his next steps and where this journey is going to take him next. And again, I'm just very, very proud of my son, Kahar Muhammad. Now, there has been a lot of talk on social media about what our sister Monique has been sharing with us. And, for quite a while, I'll say, I was somewhat of a critic of Monique's. I was a critic of the attitude and the language that she used that I thought in some ways encouraged Black women to not think about our health, to not take our health seriously or as seriously as I think that we should. And, she included, some things in her stand-up comedy. Those who have been following Monique for quite some time, you probably are reflecting, or hope you're reflecting on some of the references, when she would talk about skinny women in such a condemning and negative way. And I know that, it was for jokes and it was for laughs. But, I remember watching Monique in, in the 90s. And, she was one of the, the big, comedians at that time. We had Monique and, Steve Harvey and D.L. Hughley and, some others, some more. But I just, and of course, Black comedy, unfortunately it comes, with some raunchiness and some vulgarity. Def Comedy Jam was big in the 90s and we all loved it. But as I got older and I matured, I reflected back on Monique and her stand-up. And, there was a time when, everybody was, cheering for the big girls, make way for the big girls. And I understand, affirming a woman and affirming women in general so that we can feel good about the skin that we're in. However, as I said, as I got older and I started kind of looking around at our community and just seeing so many black women out of shape, just a overabundance of black women carrying excess weight. Now, most of us are not what our doctors would say are our ideal weight. But and we have a problem with obesity in our community. And we know that obesity and the lifestyle that contributes to obesity can also contribute to heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes and increased heart rate, and other, health concerns that we don't want. And so I thought about, what has contributed to this, besides a sedentary lifestyle. But, I remember a time when women were very concerned about how they looked. And it's not that necessarily women should walk around feeling a sense of shame. But I remember a time when women didn't just say, well, this is okay. Like there was an acknowledgement that too much weight was just not healthy. And so I thought, man, I remember Monique in the 90s, and I wonder if her comedy helped to contribute to our complacency as black women with our bodies, with our weight, with our health. And so now, fast forward, we see Monique on Instagram exercising, walking, dancing, lifting, making sure that she does what she can to improve her health and improve her longevity. And I recognize that Monique has had a shift. And I'm grateful that where on one hand her comedy was about her size and the size of women and kind of joking and taking jabs at those skinny women, now Monique, has recognized, carrying that weight wasn't good, isn't good, and she's being active and doing something about it. And she's encouraging us to come along for the journey in whatever way that's best for us. She's saying, sisters, come on. We have a lot of life and a lot of love to give. Let's make sure we take the steps through our diet and through our physical activity and our general lifestyle to improve our health. And I respect that. And so now here Monique is challenging black women, challenging us, our sisters, on how we portray ourselves in public. And some weeks ago, she posted a video talking to the camera, talking to her audience, about the bonnets that we wear in public, about the pajamas that we wear in public, about coming out looking like we don't have any care in the world about how we look. And the question she asked is, when did we lose our pride? And in her video, she's saying, look, comb your hair to look presentable in public. She's saying that if you do have pride in yourself, the way that we black women, because I'm a black woman too, and I try not to separate myself from my sister, because my sister's condition is my condition. And that's why I have this podcast. That's why you hear me coming on and just talking about issues that impact our community, because these may or may not be behaviors that I have, but I don't want to see us separate. So I say Monique is talking to us, the black woman in America. And so she's saying that if we do have pride, it doesn't look like it from what we're representing of ourselves. And man, look, we came after Monique. Some people are saying, Monique, thanks for saying it. But boy, we came after Monique. And some supported her, some hated it, hated what she said and condemned what she said. And so then Monique came with a follow-up video, not apologizing for what she said, but saying, look, there was a time when Patti LaBelle pulled my coattail. There was a time when Margaret Avery pulled my coattail. And so Monique is qualified to have this conversation with us. Because yes, you want to say, well, Monique, you were saying this and you were doing that. And when Monique was out of line, she had two elder sisters, two women, say, hold on, sis. Hold on, little sis. That's not how we do this thing. This is what we should do. This is what we shouldn't do. And Monique responded. And now Monique is passing this along, and we don't want it. I remember when my elder son was about 5 years old. My younger son was 4. I remember taking them to preschool, and there was a sister. I would I would be on my way to work, and I would drop my children off. And there was another sister who would be dropping her child off, and she would have on pajama bottoms. Now, I'm talking 15, 14 years ago. This grown woman, had on pajama bottoms. She had on slippers. She had a do-rag or a scarf on her head. It looked like she didn't even wash her face. And it used to pain me, because here you are dropping your child off at school. Now your child has on day clothes, but you come out in night clothes. And I just thought how unsanitary it is that we would wear our night clothes out into the street, and then do we get back in bed with those same clothes on? I mean, I don't like to come home after being out all day and sit in my clothes. I need to come out of the clothes that I had outside of the house, because I don't want to bring all of that into my personal living space, into my bed, onto my couches. So for me personally, I don't like bringing outside in. I don't wear shoes in the house, but that's me. But I thought, wow, this woman literally looks like she's in her pajamas. It literally looks like she didn't wash her face. I wonder if she brushed her teeth. And she's bringing her child to school. And, when you're dropping your children off, the teachers see you. And I'm like, okay, so now the teachers know, okay, this is the child of the mother who doesn't even bother to put on sneakers because she has on slippers. She doesn't bother to put on pants because she has on pajama bottoms. Obviously, pajama bottoms. And I used to hate seeing that sister like that. And then I remember, man, the straw that broke the camel's back for me was when the sister dropped her child off and brought her pillow. And I thought, okay, now maybe she's bringing this pillow for her daughter. Maybe the child needs a pillow for nap time. But nah, it was her pillow. And I saw her do this 2 or 3 times. And I remember thinking then, 15, 14 years ago, come on, Black woman. We got to do it better. We can do it better. What message are we giving to our children? If mom comes out the house, if mom hears the alarm, wakes up, tells the child to get dressed or dresses the child, and then but the mom doesn't get dressed, gets in the car, comes out into the street, drops the child off, and then you go and do what? Do you go back to bed? Do you get dressed for the day? And I just thought this is such a horrible, horrible example. Sometime after that, I remember when schools used to post or started posting signs encouraging parents to not wear pajamas when they're dropping off their children, discouraging parents from wearing their bed clothes to drop off their children. And I remember the outrage. And I'm thinking, why is this a problem? And then we started seeing more and more people wearing pajamas in public, not lounge pants, right? Not yoga pants, but literal pajamas and slippers. And we have just regressed so much. And so, Monique is saying, and I quote, she said, if you look like you don't give a damn, how are you going to be treated? And that is not an unfair question. I remember my older son, after I gave birth to him, after 6 weeks, it's time for the pediatrician visit. And I didn't choose my pediatrician. My doctors, my OBGYN, gave me a referral. So I went to that doctor. And so I didn't know them that well, but I said, okay, I need them to know that I take myself and my child, this baby, my new baby, I take us very seriously. So I got dressed like I was going to work, and I had on my business attire. I could barely fit in it, but I wanted to make sure that when this doctor saw me, they saw somebody that they had to take seriously. Because even then, 20 years ago, I was concerned about those disparities in healthcare, those disparities that we know about, we've talked about. Now it's more of a mainstream conversation. But, in our community, we know that, and I knew that doctors didn't always take our people seriously. And I also knew that I was not going to go to a doctor that served our people who came like they didn't care about themselves. And I was very strategic about the doctor or where I did not want to go to the doctor, because I didn't want them to lump me in with those other black parents that seemed like they didn't care about their children. And I know that this may be very striking conversation, but I don't mean to be striking, or I don't mean to be controversial. I want the information to be striking, but I am not trying to speak against my sisters. But listen, because you're my sisters, I can have this conversation. We show out. We act up. We are, it's not just unprofessional, uncivilized sometimes. Quite frankly, the way we talk to our children, the way we snap at our children, get over here, shut up, dummy, stupid. This is what I hear mothers, young mothers, or mothers of young children saying to these little toddlers, to these little babies who are developing, and mom is God. Until the child grows up and develops his or her own relationship with God, before then, mom is God. And you have mom calling you stupid, calling you fat, calling you ugly, calling you blackie, saying the most horrific things in front of other people. And so I remember once on a picture day, I went in to look at my child's pictures, and I remember a little girl who came to see her mom. She said, "Oh, mommy, I heard you were here," in the room where we're looking at the photos, looking at the ones that we want to choose to purchase. And she said, "Get away from me. Get out my face. I didn't call you." And I thought, you haven't seen your child all day. Your child comes in here gleeful, excited to see you, mom, and you say, "Get out my face"? What is that doing to that child? What are we communicating to our children? So no, I did not want to take my children to a doctor's office where mothers frequent who talk to their children like that. I absolutely did not. So when I go to the doctor's office, like I said, I'm dressed in business attire, and the doctor said, "Oh, are you back to work?" No, I'm not back to work. And every time I would go to the doctor's office, for the first several years, I dressed like I was, going to a business meeting. And I did that for my first son. I did that for my second son. And then at some point, I felt like, okay, everybody in this practice knows me. I can relax a little bit. Maybe, on a day off, I can wear, some dress down slacks. I didn't have to always dress up. But that was important to me because I wanted to give them a perception of me. I'm about my business. And this child here is my business. And I knew that perception, we may say it's wrong. We may say it's unfair. But, hey, people are creatures of perception. And I wanted to make sure I gave them the perception that I wanted them to have. And it came to everything with my children's care. I asked a lot of questions. I've been in hospital rooms with visiting people, and the doctor comes in and shares some information. These are the test results. This is, what I think, we're going to do. We're going to keep you another day. And the doctor will say, "Well, do you have any questions?" And I've been there when the patient said no. And I'm sitting there, I have about 5 just to get us started. I have about 5 questions. because I want the doctor to know that I'm interested in my care. Okay, so then what does this mean? What does that mean? And I've had doctors ask me when I've been, to have my sons treated, are you a nurse? Because of the questions that I ask, and I know part of that is attributed to, my career path and the work that I do. But just in general, whether it's for me or my children, I just have my husband, I have a lot of questions. And I want this doctor to know that I take myself seriously. So I understand what Monique is saying. If you look like you don't give a damn, how do you expect others to treat you? And I will say those doctors at that office treated me and my children exactly like I wanted to be treated. So for us to have a conversation and say that pajama bottoms, slippers, bonnets, and do-rags, house clothes, and sleepwear are for the home, like this is a conversation that we actually have to have. This is an awful, awful regression that we've had. Monique is right. It appears that we do not have pride in ourselves. It appears that we don't have esteem and value for ourselves, right? When we have a car, people show that they value their car. They keep it clean. They keep it tuned up. They clean the glass, right? That's how you show that you're valuing this. And then we are okay just coming out looking like we literally rolled out of bed, and sometimes we have. That just is not acceptable. And I think that, as Black women, we've been regressing in this awful way because nobody has been challenging us. Nobody has been prodding us, training us, the same way that Monique cited Margaret Avery and Patti LaBelle. And guess what? Monique had enough shame to say, they're right. They're right. I got to do better. And when we lose our sense of shame, it is very, very difficult for us to accept and to receive correction. I've heard it said that horses, even horses and dogs, have tails to cover their shame. And as women, we don't cover our shame. We look at our young men, our sons and our nephews out there with their behinds hanging out, their underwear showing. There's shame. We as a community have lost our sense of shame, and that is a very, very dangerous place to be for a society when the people lose their shame, but especially the women. And I'll explain why in a second. So, I had what I consider the village that raised me. But key in my village was my Aunt May. My Aunt May was actually my grandmother's aunt. And I spent a lot of time with her when I was growing up. And I learned a lot from her. But some of those things that I learned from her as I was growing up, I realized, and as I became a young woman specifically, I realized a lot of my peers didn't get this same training. For example, and maybe some of you older women may relate to this, and hopefully, some of you younger women can relate to this because somebody said it to you. But under a shirt, if you are wearing a blouse, you gotta wear a camisole under it, right? You don't want your bra showing. That's uncivilized. If you're wearing a dress, you gotta wear a slip under it because some dresses can be see-through. And for someone to look through your dress and to see you, that's uncivilized. I see some of these women who wear, like they will have some skin tight pants on, and obviously they're wearing a thong. Their body is shaking and jiggling, and like, whoa, sister, hold on. You need some foundation. Now, it's not to say you need a girdle because you want to hide your rolls or your ripples. I'm not saying that. But all of that jiggling, that's just uncivilized. That's a little inappropriate. And I would see my peers, and I think, I'm the same generation, but I realized that a lot of my sisters didn't get the same kind of training that I got. I mean, my aunt taught me about wearing foundation under my clothes, whether it's um, biker shorts, whether it's a slip, whether it's a camisole or a t-shirt. She taught me to say, may I? Yes, please. No, thank you. I mean, like the word ain't, we couldn't say ain't at home. We got in trouble. That was like bad language, and we would get scolded, And I realized that this is part of home training, and we have gotten away from this home training. And so I kind of consider that there's been a gap. There's a gap generation. Now, my mother didn't raise me. She was in my life, but she didn't raise me. And I look at some of my peers and some of the women a little younger than me who have a gap where they didn't have that connection to those elder women who taught those basic things, right? Have a mint in your purse. I remember she taught me this is back in the day with payphones, have a couple dimes. You got to have dimes in your pocket so that you can use the payphone back when there were payphones. Have a mint in your pocket, have tissues or handkerchief, all of these kind of civilization things. And we have an entire generation now who have been disconnected, and there's so much that they don't know. And they're not going to know it if we don't step in to share this information. And I know that everybody wants to do as they please. Or I know everybody wants to just live their life, and we don't want people checking us. And I can't believe the way some of these women are coming after Monique, because some people are trying to suggest I don't have to dress up for a man. Wait a minute. Monique even said this isn't about a man. This is about you. This is about your own personal pride. This is about your own personal esteem, what you think about yourself, and how a person and a woman who has dignity portrays herself in a public. I mean, that looks like something. And we have fallen so far astray from that. And as I said, if the woman is the first teacher, so I think that woman who was dropping her children off at preschool, when I was dropping my children off at preschool, I wonder what those children are like right now. Are they some of the children that Monique is talking about? Because they're following the representation of their mother. Mother's going to slap a young boy upside his head in front of a room full of people, that's going to curse on him, talk down to him. We have to do better, and we can do better. We should do better. And so right now there is a lot of talk about, look, live your life, do what makes you happy. Well, we have been so rearranged here that we can't just say to our young people, look, live your life and do what makes you happy. We can't say this to our older folk, live your life and do what makes you happy, because some of us have some real twisted ideas. And when I hear these young women that I work with say, look, I'm just going to do me. I'm just going to do me. I've never heard anybody say, I'm just going to do me. And they're talking about exercising. And they're talking about eating to live instead of living to eat. Or they're talking about, I'm going to do me and keep my house clean. I'm going to do me and get a good education. I'm going to do me and live my life, and I'm going to honor my parents. I'm going to do me and read a book. I'm going to do me and respect myself and respect my black man. Nah, I'm going to live my life. Look, I can't depend on people. I'm just going to do me, live my life, and teach my children manners. No, when we talk about doing me and living our life, it usually involves some kind of behavior that is not good for our health, not good for our safety, not good for our mental health and our mentality. So we got to be careful with this. Nah, look, let her live her life. Nah, do what makes you happy. Look, I think Lizzo is a talented artist, but sister needs to put some clothes on. I think Beyonce is a talented artist, but sister needs to put her clothes on. I think Rihanna is talented. Sister needs to put her clothes on. I think Cardi B, she's a great rapper. Sister needs to put her clothes on. So it's not just because Lizzo was big or Monique was big No, sister, you're going to be fine, but you don't have to show your body to everybody, do you? To everybody? I mean, everybody just gets a pass? Everybody gets to see what you look like in your bedroom? For what? Why? How come nothing is so special that we want to keep it hidden? Pearls are not more special. Diamonds are not more special, right? But you gotta work to get a pearl. You gotta work to get diamonds. You gotta work to get some gold. But there's no work involved in accessing the body of the black woman. We have fallen away and regressed so much that we make ourselves available to everybody. And we show our lack of pride and our lack of training, our lack of civility and civilization. If I'm going to roll about my house in the same thing I slept in, that's beneath the black woman. I'm going to say it. That is beneath the black woman. And so we're not taken very seriously because we don't take ourselves seriously. We have lost our sense of self-value. We have lost our sense of self-esteem. And, it's interesting because I was talking to a young sister about what's up with these eyelashes. Sure, celebrities, people on TV, that's part of that costume. What's with these, 15-year-old girls wearing these, 1.5-inch eyelashes? I mean, the eyelashes look like they have critters on their face. What is up with this? And what young sisters have told me is that a lot of the girls, they have to wear the weave and the eyelashes and the nails because they don't feel good about themselves without it. Well, dang, where did that come from? Hasn't anyone been telling them that they're beautiful, that they're special, that they're wonderfully made? They had to go and get these attachments to find value in themselves, and they refuse to come out the house if they don't have it. Who's putting these handicaps on our women? Who's putting these handicaps on our young sisters? So, we have to, and I like how Monique said it. Look, I'm not saying you don't have pride. It just looks like you don't. I'm not saying you don't have self-love. It just looks like you don't. And so, I just want to say something about our culture. I heard this over the weekend, and I found it to be so outrageous that there's a principal in a New Jersey school who told her staff that they cannot say anything to the black students who come to school in pajamas, bonnets, and head wraps. The stuff that they slept in. She said, you can't say anything to these students because it's their culture. It's our culture. This is what people think about us now. It is our culture that we're wearing pajamas in public. And look, we got a segment of our people who, believe in the Back to Africa movement, who talk about Africa as if it is all things perfect, like Africa is the ultimate destination. Africa is the representation of black greatness. Okay. That's okay to think. So where do the pajamas come in? Queen? where does that come in? What happened to all that black pride? And now you're wearing your bed clothes, your night clothes in public. And if you didn't sleep in them, look, I don't know about all of that, but I know they're for the bed. I know they're for the house. And I know I'm seeing you in the supermarket. So people are beginning to think, sisters, that this is our culture. And this is not our culture. This is us falling away from civilization and something that is uncivilized in living a beast life because we've lost love and knowledge of ourselves. Well, that something is referred to as savage. And sisters, we don't want to be savage. They treat us like it, don't they? Don't they treat us like it when we go into some of these social services buildings? Don't they treat us like we're animals, like we're brutes? The police, don't they treat us like we're animals and brutes, like savages, right? They watch what we say in our rap songs and they watch these videos and they see us acting like animals, we have to do better, and we can do better. And I have to say, we have to stop condemning correction when it comes. We have to stop condemning people who want to hold us accountable, who encourage us to do better. It is not causing harm to encourage a black woman to look presentable and to teach her children to do the same. It is not hateful to encourage a black man to pull his pants up and put on a belt and teach his sons to do the same. If I'm saying it, Monique is saying it, that's love. That's love when somebody comes to you and says, look, I know it's going to be hard to hear. It may be hard to say, but look, we got to do better. That's love. I know I don't want anybody else saying it to our people. So much. Now they're saying, no, don't say anything. That's just their culture. That's how they are. Okay, so what are they saying about us in the classroom and our academic aptitude? If they're convinced that this is our culture, we have to do better, and we can do better. Let's return to the glory of self-love. Let's return to the glory of black pride. But that looks like something, and we have not been representing black love or black pride when we're coming out of our homes looking like we just rolled out of bed. I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. I pray, and I hope that the conversation, what I just shared, is received with the love that it is intended. This is not condemnation. And so people have said to Monique on social media, you don't know her story. She could be, because Monique did also post a picture of a woman that was sent to her. This black woman was in the airport. She has on a short dress. It's somehow rolled up in the back, so it's showing her underwear, and she has some kind of plastic bag or something on her head. And so Monique posted this picture and saying, look, this is what I'm saying we shouldn't be doing. And so people are saying, you don't know her story. She could be flying to bury a loved one. Okay, well, maybe she's going to bury a loved one, and she didn't think to put on more than what she had on. What about that girl that you saw at the supermarket? What about that sister that you saw at the Walmart? What about her? What about that student that's rolling up in school in her pajamas? What about that? We can't keep excusing everybody and everything and letting it go because we want to just let people live their life. Because look at our community. We're shooting each other to death. We're eating ourselves to death. I mean, we can do better. We can do better. So I'm interested in your thoughts. I'm interested in your feedback. You can email me at Nora at noraspeaks.com. That's Nora at noraspeaks.com. I love my people. I love my people so much. And so sometimes we have to say that thing that's hard. And, and I felt Monique when she said, look, I gave a lot of thought. I gave a lot of thought to this before I came up on here. Because she knows our people don't want to hear it. But guess what? We still have to tell the truth. Unless we lose our people, we got to tell the truth. And, we pray that it is received with the love that it's intended. And if it is not received, well, I've done my duty. She's done her duty by sharing what needs to be shared. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. I look forward to more conversation next week. Until then, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, noramahammed.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.